If you look at what's possible now with the new AI tools, you essentially have a team of engineers for you for $20 a month, right? You definitely would benefit from hiring an engineer or two, but right now I have two engineers working on my AI startup, and the fact that I can build as much as I probably used to build with 20 people, with two engineers. That completely changed the equation. And I haven't even had to go out for funding to do this. Before, I would really be spending almost all my time fundraising and then, trying to sell and convince people to work and blah, blah, blah. Whereas now, I'm focusing on building and iterating and getting it out there.
Welcome to Entrepreneurism. I'm your host, Scott Pollock, a seasoned business leader, entrepreneur, and CEO coach with a passion for helping others achieve success in their entrepreneurial journeys. On this show, we dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, uncovering why so many struggle and revealing what the most successful do differently. True entrepreneurs have unique superpowers, including the ability to spot hidden business opportunities and convert them into thriving ventures. For most mere mortals, this ability is absolutely unfathomable. But these same strengths can become sources of struggle, whether it's pursuing multiple opportunities without losing focus, scaling without eroding culture, or balancing short-term demands with long-term vision. The entrepreneur's journey is full of tensions. Here we explore critical factors that drive entrepreneurial success. How to stay focused, manage resources, build strong teams, and develop the resilience to navigate the ups and downs of the journey. Bold ideas, candid conversations, and insights that will help you unlock your full potential. Ready to learn and grow, expand your toolkit, and discover actionable strategies to help you navigate your own entrepreneurism? Let's dive in. On the podcast today, I'm excited to have my good friend, Alvin Wang Graylin, a serial entrepreneur who's recognized as a tech leader with over 30 years of innovation across AI, XR, cybersecurity, and semiconductors. Welcome, Alvin.
Hey, Scott, it's good to see you again.
A little more on Alvin. Alvin currently serves as chairman of the Virtual World Society, vice chair of the Industry of VR Alliance, and is a digital fellow at Stanford's AI Lab. Well, he's had several executive roles at big corporates like HTC, where he led the company's XR business for nearly 10 years, and much earlier at Intel, IBM, Trend Micro, and WatchGuard. I became friends with Alvin in Shanghai almost 20 years ago when he was in full throttle serial entrepreneur mode. Alvin is also the best-selling co-author with Louis Rosenberg of Our Next Reality, How the AI-Powered Metaverse Will Reshape the World. I love the book, I must say. And given Alvin's tremendous thought leadership in the space, expect that today's episode will be a little different. Beyond unpacking Alvin's entrepreneurial experience, would like to explore the broader evolution of entrepreneurism with AI. Nevertheless, let's start with your entrepreneurial journey. Tell us about it, Alvin.
Thanks, Scott. It's I look forward to our conversation. As you know, I kind of grew up my entire life as an entrepreneur. In fact, I immigrated from China to U.S. when I was 9, and my dad sat my brother and I down and said, we don't have any money. If you want to go to college, you got to pay for it yourself. So pretty much since 9, I've had to pay for every one of my, whether it's my first bicycle or my first computer or for my first car or my college, all through my own work. And when I was in college, I probably started my first real company. I was with my roommate. We were doing essentially a system integration and consulting company. It's kind of what Dell was doing with his company back when he was in school, except he was much more successful at it. But we were selling computers and custom programming to small businesses and to the university, which paid for pretty much most of my costs during school, in addition to some scholarships. And then I founded, I guess, another company after Intel, where Well, actually, I went to Intel. We founded the I did essentially an entrepreneurship experience where I founded the China office for Intel. And having built an organization of from essentially zero to $300 million inside a large corporation across the ocean from the headquarters, and then I came back to the U.S. and worked a year before I went to get my MBA at MIT in computer science and business. And then after that, I started a AI company doing big data analytics. This is right at the bursting of the internet bubble. So it was not the best time to start a AI and internet company. Um, but it was amazing learning experience because we were essentially doing uh, forecasting of customer value by looking at user behaviors. This was back in 99, 2000, 2001. Um, and being able to work with all of the online companies, the portals, the e-commerce companies, and helping them identify who are the best customers. So kind of big data analytics back then. But using genetic algorithms to be able to identify with a very small amount of data on each user what the long-term value of these customers were. Unfortunately, the internet bubble crashed and all of our customers went away. So and even our VC closed their their U.S. office, and it was a Hong Kong-based VC, and then they didn't even pay us the second tranche of our investment. So it was a real learning experience.
As I'm sure they all are. Yep.
Yes, yes. So and then I went and worked in Taiwan for a while, and then came back, worked in Seattle for a while, and then started another entrepreneurship venture in Shanghai doing MInfo, is the first natural language search company in the world. Actually, we were doing mobile natural language search. So essentially, you send a sentence of what you're looking for, and you get answers back. Kind of what ChatGPT was doing the last few years, but we did it in 2005. And we were deployed in all three Chinese carriers. We were the official search provider for the Beijing Olympics. So it was I think a relatively successful venture, and really ahead of its time, I guess. And then I made a social network on mobile, and then I even had a location-based entertainment, location-based. I guess kind of local search company, local search and services company, and even had a digital model agency for a little while, helping a friend to digitize a portion of business that usually had not been very digital in the past.
I remember that one. Yep.
Yes. uh, and then I went and did some investing. So I got onto investing side and joined or actually founded a investment accelerator for mobile companies with one of my old investors, with whom you also know, William Balbin. And then later on, helped to start up some of the business for HTC in the VR/AR space, and founded their accelerator. We invested in over 100 AI and XR companies over a multi 4 or 5 year period. And then I also founded the VRVCA, the Virtual Reality Venture Capital Alliance. It was a group of a consortium, about 50 strategic and financial investors around the world that had about $18 billion associated with for VR industry investments. So I've been,
Yeah.
essentially
Been around for a
on
while and done a lot of things.
multiple sides of the table, and multiple sides of the ocean as well. So
So, you know, for listeners, many of whom I think probably believe that AI is something new. The last few years they've heard of it because of ChatGPT or other AI platforms, right? Or models. But help us understand, how far back AI goes and where this was sort of playing a role in what you were doing, but also, in the broader space.
yeah, I mean, I guess if you look at the modern AI, it probably started in the 1950s, and a lot of it came from actually World War II, from some of the code breaking, and that team then created some of the early AI. But that AI and the AI today is a little bit different. I first started studying it in the I think 1990, 91, so 35 years ago. And that was when, in fact, I worked on neural networks, kind of what the current connectionist trend for big data and machine learning. We were doing natural language search, natural language processing. So essentially taking voice and turning it into words and commands. And that was one of my college projects. And I created, in fact, I was coding things using assembly level commands to build a entire integrated system to make that happen. So to see how it's progressed to where it is today, it is quite amazing. The initial wave of AI that came out, actually there was two waves that came out at the same time. One was the let AI learn, and one was the tell AI what are the rules of the world. And one was called symbolic AI, which was essentially kind of the expert model, whereas the connectionist model is to mimic kind of the human brain or the biological brain. Um, Unfortunately, the connectionists kind of lost out because the systems that were available at the time during the 50s and 60s were just not sophisticated enough, not large enough for those learning models to actually be effective. So essentially, it took a hiatus for about 50 years until kind of the early 2000s to maybe 2010 when the machine learning and then later deep learning became viable again because of the scale of compute and the scale of memory and scale of data that is now available. But now I think that the two are starting to work together. People talk about neurosymbolic systems that will help to create the next wave of AI systems, and I think there's definitely a lot of potential for that to happen. So it's amazing how much breakthrough is coming out almost on a daily basis, and I think the next 5 years is going to be critical in terms of seeing its actual deployment starting to come out into the real world.
Perfect. And so typically on the podcast, I'm sort of drilling into the superpowers that my entrepreneur guests have leveraged, the struggles that they've had to overcome, uh, how they've essentially navigated the entrepreneurial journey, the ups and downs.
Hmm.
I think you've had certainly more than your fair share of all of those, having a very rich career to date. But what I wanted to do is spin it a little differently, which is, talking about the superpowers, and you can think about your own to start, that you've been able to leverage. How is AI changing the game for entrepreneurs? And do you think it's changing the game, or do you still think that it's still the same?
Um,
The same things are required for success.
yeah, I think the game is actually changing in a very big way. If you look at when I started doing entrepreneurship, the biggest initial milestone was getting funding
Mhm.
because everything was so expensive, whether to hire people or to do the initial prototypes or customer acquisitions and so forth. That's really changed. If you look at what's possible now with the new AI tools, you essentially have a team of engineers for you for $20 a month, right? You definitely would benefit from hiring an engineer or two, but right now I have two engineers working on my AI startup, and the fact that I can build as much as I probably used to build with 20 people, with two engineers. That completely changed the equation, and I haven't even had to go out for funding to do this. Before, I would really be spending almost all my time fundraising, and then trying to sell and convince people to work and blah blah blah. Whereas now I'm focusing on building and iterating and getting it out there. The infrastructure to deploy this stuff is available everywhere, and it's you can pay as you go. So to bootstrap is a lot easier than it used to be, and for getting customer acquisition, I think it's also easier because there's so many different tools now that there's so many networks customers that reach to hundreds of millions or even billions of users, and you can create any micro group you want. So I feel like validating businesses, creating proofs of concepts, doing the initial prototyping, all of that is significantly easier. At the same time, what's going to be harder is that there's going to be just a lot more competition and things are going to move significantly faster.
Hmm.
And so the agility of the entrepreneur is going to be more, I think, that the key of success in the near to midterm. Whereas before, it was really just tenacity and just grinding. It was like a numbers game. You talk to 100 VCs and maybe one or two will give you money. And now you don't even need it. You can self fund and just bootstrap it initially, and then if it works, sort of, then you can go and talk to a YC and they'll take in 100 or 200 or whatever companies per batch, and then you're off and running, right? So um, I don't think that the issue now is much money because there's so much money right now out there, and they're all looking for good opportunities.
Hmm. Hmm. How soon do you think we're going to see the one employee unicorn, or no employee
Um,
unicorn?
yeah, no, I think, well, I mean, you're going to have at least one because you need the founder, but I would think within the next 2 or 3 years. Yeah, because if you have a founder that has some technical experience and with the tools that are coming, if you essentially if you're a good manager of these agents, you can do a lot of work, and then you can have some part-time contractors. It may not be 100% one human, but you don't have to have full-time employees to do a lot of the work that is needed. There's so much kind of services, whether you're talking about marketing or payments or inventory or delivery, all of that can be outsourced to different people or different companies to take those functionality out of the headquarter, out of the operations of the company. So you really don't need a lot of humans, particularly if you're doing digital type services.
So it's interesting. You mentioned managing of AI agents, and a few of the things I was reading recently were suggesting, and it's sort of been my own experience, that when you're prompting AI, that you've got to think about, almost like this is that really smart intern, and you got to make sure that the AI is given all the instructions that the really smart intern would need to make sure that it's going in the right direction, right? That you're not sending it off in the wrong direction. And I think we're all learning to be better at all that, of course. Uh, but it makes me think a little bit about, if the future is managing a bunch of AIs across the fabric of a venture, and for most entrepreneurs today, it's the soft stuff. It's managing all the people that are in the business. That's the hard stuff, right?
Mhm.
Is there a parallel there? Is there a parallel that we're gonna have similar struggles perhaps, but just in a different way, managing a bunch of different AIs?
I actually think less so because there's certain, I can't remember what the rule is. There's certain, essentially, as your company grows, more and more of the effort of the team, I think it's at the log of this of the size of your team, is
Hmm.
spent in terms of doing friction within the company of
Yeah.
whether it's politics or whether it's bureaucracy or whatever. So the larger your team, the less efficient it is. And with AI, I don't think you have a lot of the communication barriers you have between humans, and particularly as you go forward, right? Once you get to AGI, there essentially will be almost no barriers between the machines to each other or the
Mm.
agents to each other. So I don't know if you need the art of human resource or management that people have struggled with essentially since the beginning of time. So I feel like then you can be much more focused on just getting the objective out. So if you
Hmm.
know what the problem is and what you need, then you essentially you push these workers, these virtual workers, to go do that. Now, I think there is going to be a change in terms of the reason to do it, right? I mean, today people do it because companies, really the only way to get super wealthy today is to start up companies, right? Very few
Mhm.
employees become mega wealthy billionaires. I think Bomber might be the only employee that has gotten over $100 billion in net worth or something, right? And he kind of came in early and got lucky, and Gates trusted him. But I feel like that's going to be more and more rare going forward. Now the key though is right now it's all about wealth acquisition. Um, in the in the not distant future, and we were talking about this before the call. And I recently wrote this paper called Abundanism.
Mhm.
It's essentially a philosophy for post-scarcity society. And if we get to a society where essentially AI and robotics does all of the cognitive plus manual work, the the reason for us to work goes away. And if the society is structured well enough that we are taking care from our basic needs, and we have a proper UBI, or universal basic infrastructure uh, built into the society, then the goal of starting businesses is not to get rich. The goal of starting businesses is to have a greater sense of impact and influence and service to society. So
Mhm.
how you might judge a company's success is how many people are using it, not how much you made from it, right? Or how much benefit you brought to society. And you're going to essentially allow almost everybody on earth has an opportunity to be an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily have to mean building a company. They could be a creator that makes virtual movies, or they could be a world builder, or they could be a writer, right? All of these
Mhm.
are different forms of entrepreneurship in terms of you're working for yourself. You're not working for a large corporation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's the broader definition of the entrepreneur, the builder, with their own capital, and I put quotes around that because it doesn't have to just be money, it's their own resource at risk. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I think the future limited scarce thing is not money anymore, because I think money, the concept of money, of how we define it today, will eventually go away. It'll take time, but really the limited resource is time, right? How much time am I going to put into this? We all have a limited amount of time we have on this planet, and that's going to be the most scarce thing. And
Mhm.
it'll be scarce for everyone, right? Whether you're a trillionaire or a new graduate, you are going to be constrained on time, and how you spend that time is
Mhm.
your form of entrepreneurship, right? In the terms of, I want to, and it could be something as simple as, I want to spend more time teaching kids and just helping them grow, and that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and we should not be undervaluing that compared to somebody who says, "Oh, I want to create the next unicorn." Although at that point, the unicorn may just means a billion people's using it. It doesn't necessarily mean you're worth $1 million or $1 billion, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
um, so I think there's going to be a lot of redefinition of how the world works, and probably for the better. The difficulty is the in between, is
Yeah.
what happens between now and when that happens, and how do we get there, and how smoothly is that transition? Because there right now is a lot of friction that will maintain the current mindset and the current institutions, because that's what's available today. And there's going to be a essentially immune system that
Yeah.
tries to keep you from changing, right?
Absolutely.
So
Change is difficult. And I mean, clearly, governments and, the wealthy today and the big corporations have a lot of investment in the status quo. And that's going to
Mhm.
be difficult to change. I guess one of the thoughts is, you've got this, I would call it a utopian vision, abundanism, right? Where the game does change, and the economic model certainly changes dramatically with AI, that becomes super intelligence, right? What is the role of entrepreneurs in maybe getting us there? You said that transition is going to be tricky, right? And it's going to be
Yeah.
a big challenge. What is the role of entrepreneurs perhaps in that, in getting through this?
Well, I think the entrepreneur is still going to be needed, because to me, an entrepreneur is a more brave soul who's willing to sacrifice and have and endure greater pain than the average office worker, right? And whenever you have change, it is those people who are willing to make
Mm,
short-term sacrifices for long-term gains. And long-term gains doesn't necessarily mean long-term personal gain. It could be long-term societal gain.
sure.
And the people
Sure.
who are willing to go out there and tell the story, the people who are willing to go out there and create services that benefit a larger
Yep.
portion of society and share those benefits. So one of the ways that this will happen is that the whether it's the large countries or the richest companies, if they start to have a mindset that we actually have enough, it's okay. We don't need to all, we he or she or a company doesn't need to have $1 trillion of profit. We could actually share that profit to emerging markets or to lesser wealthy individuals in your own society, right? Or to then move that money instead of building more office buildings or having corporate jets. Maybe we should build more schools, and maybe we should build more power plants,
Mm,
right? To reallocate how these resources are going to be created. I think that will be something that a entrepreneur with a long term mindset is willing to do compared to a manager in a corporation really who won't have the authority to do it, um, or necessarily the courage to do it.
yeah.
So, um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what yeah. So we'll see what happens. And I think from we talked earlier about there are also the class of content creators as a entrepreneur. If some of these content creators could then start to create content that changes people's minds, that through story or through movies or through VR experiences, that can also be a powerful catalyst for change. Because for us to change logically, first we have to change emotionally
Yep.
and accept that there is a possibility for an abundant world. And unfortunately, because of the 10,000 years or so of history of us creating a scarcity minded society and a hierarchical society, it's not something that will easily be altered.
No, no, and I mean, I like that. I mean, the entrepreneurs are the visionaries. They're the ones that are able to conceive of a different world and to build it.
Mhm.
Um, and I like actually you said a few times the long term. I was thinking about Simon Sinek talks about the infinite mindset, and I think
Mhm.
that also plays into this. That it's the entrepreneur, hopefully that can get out of the short term scarcity mindset and into the infinite long term mindset where there is abundance. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge though for sure, and we'll have to see how that plays out. I mean, the exciting part, I suppose, is that we're going to see it. I mean,
Yeah,
this is
but
happening
well,
real
we're
time.
gonna see it play out, but I mean, it's not. There's no guarantee that it's
No,
going to
exactly.
get to the positive end. So,
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's an exciting time, but it's also a very high responsibility time, right?
Yep.
I mean, our people our age right now are the ones who are leading companies who have access to capital or influence. We actually have a even higher responsibility than the younger groups who may want to do this but really don't have the resources to do it.
Mm,
So I feel like I mean this is why I'm spending a lot more time now going around talking to people because I want to get those people who are in positions of influence and power and in policy making to have and to be exposed to an alternative mindset, because they are the ones and we are the ones that will affect how that plays out. And the next 5 to 10 years is really the key because if we do the right things in the next decade, then we will be on that path to a long-term utopia. We're kind of at the crest of a hill, and we could take one step to the right, which goes down cliff, or we could take one step to the left, where it goes into a valley of abundance, right? And
yeah.
and the next 5 to 10 years is that first step. I mean, we're not going to get to utopia or protopia in 5, 10 years. It's going to take a while to play out. But that path, once we are on that path, it should be a self reinforcing flywheel that will
Hmm.
continue the path ongoing.
Well, amazing. Let's see. And I know you're out there evangelizing, which is certainly going to help. I want to switch gears a little bit, thinking about I guess in the frame of what entrepreneurs can do, and how today's entrepreneurs can be learning more about how to be prepared for this next 5, 10 years and the inflection that's coming. I want to do some quick fire, rapid fire questions. First one: what's one book every entrepreneur should read?
Um, so I think a lot of times people ask, what is the simple answer? The reality is, I don't think there's one book. I actually think that we should all be reading a lot of books. I average about 100 books a year. And the problem when you tell people there's one book, they think that there is a shortcut. And the reality is
Yeah.
that there is no shortcut to being a good entrepreneur. There's no shortcut to being a good human. And so you should read as many books as you can, and be wide in the range of books that you read. Because when I was young, unfortunately I spent too much time reading books that were just in my industry, and I didn't have a breadth of information or breadth of knowledge. And over the last 10 or 20 years, I started to widen that out and to spend more time learning history, learning philosophy, learning sociology, learning biographies. Where when the more you learn, the more breadth you learn, the more connections you can make, and the better you become as a communicator, and the better you can learn from the histories of the lessons of history. And so I try to shy away from saying any one book, because it's always good to get a few of these self-help books or sales books or raising money books or entrepreneurship books, and you'll learn a little bit from each of these. But it is the combination of hundreds of books where you will start to create your own connections and your
Yeah.
own philosophies.
I'm with you. Leaders are readers, and it's all about getting patterns into your head. You're ahead of me though. I'm averaging about 50 books a year, so I think
No,
I've got
I
to.
mean, the average American does not read more than one book in the rest of their life after graduating from college.
That's
This
a
is
scary statistic if it's true.
it is true, and it's sad. It is
It's
just
sad.
sad,
Yeah,
and
that is
yeah.
sad. Okay. Uh, well, of course, there's our next reality, which is a good book that someone who hasn't been reading much could start with.
It's a great starting point. I highly recommend it.
What's one thing you do every morning to set yourself up for success?
I try to wake up at a constant time, whether on the weekend or on the weekday, and start with a little bit of exercise and a little bit of breathing, and I feel like that actually, it when you have high energy and you have good health, it's really the root of any good entrepreneur. If you're tired and you're sick and you're ill and you're low energy, you will not be a successful entrepreneur. So you have to take care of your body, and a healthy mind starts with a healthy body.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. What's a tool or app you can't live without?
um, I guess a couple things that are probably a little bit different than most. I have a this thing called Doodle Do. I've been using it for 20 years. It's probably, it's kind of it's like Notion, but it was something that I used in the form of what Notion is today, but it was, long before Notion was created. But whenever I have an idea, I'll write it
Mhm.
down. Whenever if I have a dream and then there's something I should do, I write it down, because I know that my memory is not perfect, and I will miss things. And whenever I'm in the shower or whenever I'm on a plane, I when I have ideas, I'll write down. But when I'm on plane, I actually go through and read it. I will read, what were the last 100 things I wrote down for myself, and I start to remind me, and I start to prioritize, and I'll start grouping them by topics, by priority, by due dates, and it's a common place for me to organize all of the
Mhm.
things I need to do. And I think right now I probably have 10,000 items on there that are, whether it's to dos or it's quotes to remember or it's read books I need to read or whatever. And
Mhm.
it's just a way for me to have a searchable, a sortable list of ideas and things that I need to keep in my life. And I feel there's probably better tools now than this, but it is something that I find very helpful. And I think also just right now, recently, I spend a lot of time every day. I'm using some AI tools, and because I feel like I can right now get almost any question answered with even today's tools. I don't need AGI. And I feel like most of the frontier AI tools today are already, I would say, at a near AGI level in terms of knowledge, and if you ask the right questions, right? That I think that the big difference in the future is when you get AGI is that you don't even need to ask questions. You just kind of, it will know you enough to tell you things before you even need it, and it will continue to grow and understand more
Mm.
about the world as you experience it and share more information with it. So, but I think even today's tools, I would definitely recommend every entrepreneur, in fact, every person, to spend more time using the tools out there and to know its capabilities. So.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What daily habit keeps you grounded?
Um, I guess reading because I that's my
Yeah,
that's
well,
my
100
hobby.
books a year, that's a lot of reading. So
Yeah, yeah. So that's a lot of hours, and I reserve probably a couple hours a day to do that, and it is a significant commitment.
Mm.
I do get sometimes when I'm on a 10, 12 hour, 14-hour flight, I can get a lot more reading done, but you'll be amazed how much you can read if you don't watch TV and you don't play video games and you don't have a lot of time wasting bad habits. So,
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. And what's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
um, I guess in terms of human resource, it's hire slowly, fire quickly,
Mm,
because I feel like most companies fail because of the team. And sometimes you get too emotional in terms of you like somebody and you want to work with them, and then you get too attached
mhm.
to a person or an idea. Um, the other thing is really, cash is king. And as an entrepreneur, you have, at least near term, cash is going to be very important, because if you don't have cash on hand, you just cannot operate. And the world starts to become a crisis after crisis. So managing your cash. And then probably lastly is everything is sales. So, so you gotta
Sell,
sell
sell, sell.
you
Yep.
gotta know how to sell, and you gotta know how to recruit. And recruit is selling. Fundraising is selling is selling. Everything is sales. So you're always trying to convince somebody of something. So learn how to sell. I think if you can do these three things well, um, the chance of success is pretty high.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Any advice you'd add for entrepreneurs just starting their journey now?
Um, if you're starting your journey, go find some mentors, because
Mm,
you don't know what you don't know, and find people who you trust, who just want the good for you. They're not trying to make money from you or trying to get a share of something. They don't have ulterior motives. Get people you trust, and you will learn a lot from them. And spend time with them, respect them, listen to them. Most of the time they will be right. Maybe a few times you might know something they don't know, but I would wager that most of the time somebody who's done it a few times will have a lot to teach you.
yeah. Awesome. That's a great place to end. I totally agree. Alvin, it's just amazing to have you on the podcast. As always, you've got tremendous insight and given us so much to think about. Personally, I'm excited about what's coming next with AI and this next 5, 10 years, as you put it. I think that's the horizon that I've been thinking about too. That it's the inflections are going to be really pronounced. It seems like on the road
Yeah, I mean,
to
you're going to
AGI.
see 100 years of progress happen in the next 10 years. So, we think nothing that much happens in 10 years, but in the next 10 years, we're going to see real changes. Just think about what the world was like in the early 1900s.
Well, I wasn't there, but yes, it was a bit different for sure. Well, great. Let's wrap it up here. To my listeners, we've got many more amazing guests lined up, so please subscribe, leave feedback, and share this episode in your feeds. And until next time, thanks, Alvin.
No, thank you, Scott, and hope this your audience got something out of it. Have a great day. Well, I'll look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Definitely. Thanks for listening. Remember, entrepreneurship isn't just about spotting opportunities. It's about taking disciplined action to bring them to life. Hope you'll join again next time as we continue to unpack the complexities of entrepreneurism.